welcome back to another episode of Just Saying, where I'm just saying, you're just listening, and I'm just trying to decide what the title of video should be beforehand. I was thinking of calling this one Fantasy is Dead. If you played Metaphor last year, that would make sense, but we're gonna go with why JRPGs are more important than ever in 2025. And I think that one will explain itself pretty quickly. If you haven't already guessed, or you're a fan of JRPGs in particular, you might understand the thesis statement of what I'm talking about here. And that is, there is a wonderful communal earnestness to JRPGs that I think thematically you don't really find in a lot of other genres. And then on the other flip side of explaining the second half of the title, the 2025, everything's on fire. While I would say video games in general are amazing as just a source of joy and entertainment and jokes, that's what I offer. I just come here with puns and try to make or ruin your day. Let me know which one in the comments. But I think there's something wonderful outside of the fact that games are just inherently a great escapist place to turn to that is supportive of just trying to give you something to focus on and just for the sheer enjoyment of it all, but at the same time can be harnessed to convey a kind of message of hope. And I personally don't think anybody is doing hope quite like JRPGs, the entire genre, the staple publishers and developers in that genre, the Persona series, Final Fantasy, Fire Emblem. I think a lot of those games in their respective franchises, especially now, are doing so much to say we can overcome odds and enemies and systems that are unfair and unjust just by believing in ourselves, by being the change we want to see, by forming bonds with other people, meaningful connections, and not letting these terrifying, unshakable odds and the sheer likelihood that there's no way you're going to succeed as just, one little data point in the whole messed up world of whatever's happening in that game world. I know it sounded like I was talking about our world, but I guess it applies to both. And it's that thematically that I think becomes so meaningful whenever we find ourselves in socio-political crises. And let's face it, there are no more precedented times. And it'd be great if we got to a year that was precedented, but I think at this point, maybe not. I was playing Metaphor last year, and I think there's something so beautiful about this save the country quest. And it quite literally says your main quest is to save the country. And I totally understand how that could come off a bit naff. That's an English word. We don't say that in Australia, but I'm adjusting to the WhatCulture-ness. I think there's something, it can seem really naive and earnest in a way that I would describe as childish, even though I think that is, that's really not capturing how good like this kind of theme and tone is. It's sort of patronizing in a way, but I think it's sort of this beautiful childlike which is this vulnerability, bleeding heart, walls down, this unconditional and unashamed messaging that knowing yourself, forming close bonds with the people around you, and in these games, a lot of what I'm talking about or what might occur to you with JRPGs, there are games that almost always, at least in my experience, have systems where you forming those close bonds with the people around you by making friends, by bringing people into your party, into your life, and not just that, but engaging with them in a meaningful way. Now, for those I'm thinking about, like the Persona games, Metaphor is a really good one, which is, of course, the latest new IP by Atlas of Persona, and also games like Fire Emblem, which is heavy on the strategy side, but when you pull back to the life simulator part, completely make or break depending on how much you invested in those characters. I think in terms of a game that is also party-based, but I think extends outside of the party is a game like Yakuza Like a Dragon. And I think there's something to be said for the sub-stories in those games. Take, for example, Infinite Wealth or Pirate Yakuza, which has been a blast. There's little things that the Yakuza games do where they inject just this sweetness, I think is the word for it. When I was playing Infinite Wealth, there's a sub-story which are basically just tiny side quests if you haven't played the games. And you help this guy who is standing outside of a hotel and like doesn't know where he's supposed to go, and this woman helps him out and just like gives him a lei, an L-E-I lei. L-I-E, it's a lei. You get it. And then just like, hey, can I have money? You know that thing, like that Hollywood Boulevard type thing where it's like someone will pose with you and then be like, hey. Anyway, this happens a few times and you're like, man, this guy's being shaken down. And you get towards the end of that quest and you decide to go talk to him about it and be like, hey, and in the nicest possible way, because protagonist Ichiban Kasuga is maybe the nicest dude in all of video games. But you say to him, hey, I think you're being taken for a ride. And every sub-story wraps up with the same emotional tune, and I cry every damn time. But at the end of the sub-story, he said, look, I know, like, Jesus. He's like, I know that that's happening. It's just I felt lonely and I've had all these terrible things happen. That's why I came to Hawaii, and just someone like coming up and talking to me and being able to help, that, you know, she needs the money. It's like, I don't mind. Like, I don't mind exchanging money for like the t-shirt or the lei or anything else, because, you know, it feels good to help someone. It makes me feel less lonely. Oh no. And it's like, there's just a sweetness to it that I think if I was more nihilistic, or perhaps if you feel more cynical, you could see it as manipulative and again, a bit naff. Here's where I find out I'm using naff wrong, and just a bit like throwaway and whatever. But I think when you put all those moments together and underneath either the banner of a story like Metaphor, where it is save the country from, in Metaphor's case, intense prejudice and division and just the political elite taking advantage of everyone, taking advantage of people not knowing what's going on in different socio-political systems, and just different people that belong to each of the games. Races are very inherently hierarchical in terms of the jobs they can get, the way that they're treated. You are, as the main character, I think I mentioned this in a Metaphor video, you're an elder, which is basically your bottom of the food chain in terms of the tribes in the game and how they're viewed. And there is something that feels monumentally just impossible to surpass in that game, which is overhauling the system. It's not just overhauling the system. You, as part of a popularity contest, need to make enough of a name for yourself that you become the front runner that everyone in their heart believes they want to run the country. And you do this from starting as an absolute nobody, and everybody hates you, and it's kind of actually pretty brutal to walk around in that world. Many people would experience that in our world too, but it's very harsh and it's very unwelcoming, and the odds really do seem impossible. You're up against like people with so much more power and influence and just raw like access to like money and manpower and all these things that you have to build up very gradually through questing and connecting with people and getting to know people. And yet again, that is a game that rewards you for properly getting to know the people that you invite into your party, and also ongoing characters who pepper through the main quest. And it's optional whether you want to spend time with those people, but much like Persona, spending time with them grants you special perks and things like that that are going to help you through the entire game. And those vary on which person you're hanging out with, but quite naturally in that game, in Fire Emblem, in Persona, it becomes an impetus to begin the relationship, but then having that relationship, companionship, continuation that reaches a point that you genuinely care, I think at least, ends up being because you want it, because you're invested, because you like that person. And perhaps some of this video is me being naive and earnest about the genre that I think is really naive and earnest. But I think that there just is this distillation of hope that no one is too small to make a difference. I feel like a politician right now, but that's kind of what it is. These games just have this undercurrent of connection, utilizing that for good. And it isn't to say that WRPGs don't do this. Absolutely, in those games and plenty of games, you bond with the people around you. And let's take Mass Effect or Dragon Age. You're rewarded for engaging more like side missions, the companion quests in Mass Effect. You do get gameplay perks out of it. But I don't think in those games there's quite the same. It's this bleeding heart earnestness. In Mass Effect, it's like, yeah, you save the world, 100%. Dragon Age is similar. Skyrim, you're the chosen one. It's your job to go do the thing. But there's this real open heart thing that I think happens in JRPGs, where characters can just be so maximum vulnerable and just bleeding heart. Here is everything put on the table. Here are all my fears. In Metaphor in particular, it's a game based around your anxiety. It's a game about anxiety, and it's about how you need to harness anxiety and let anxiety be to turn fear and anxiety into, and they say, magic. And you actually can't, they say, get magic unless you accept anxiety and just the inevitability of fear, of things being hard, of difficulties, of difficult times that are just part of the human condition, or the Tribes of Metaphor condition. And of course, it's a fantasy game. I mean, like when you die, it literally says fantasy is dead, which could have been the title, but we're not doing that. But it's just sort of beautiful. And I think the other thing that makes these games work so well is that they aren't 15, 30-hour experiences. Now, that's not always good. Obviously, it takes a long time to play these things. It's a huge time investment. It's the kind of thing that results in gamers not being able to also enjoy TV or books as much as other people, because we're playing, in this case, like a 100 to 200 hour JRPG. I think that's how long these things usually take me, because I like to experience anything. But I think because of that, you just become so embedded in this world. If we're talking Persona 5, for example, the whole thing is about injustice. It's not fair. It's like all these ruling adults who are just completely lambasting everyone around them, who are taking advantage, who are doing things that are politically, morally, usually all of the above, completely wrong. Abusing workers, the creepy volleyball guy who's beating up the volleyball players, like all the politicians, these evil adults who are just doing terrible things, and you as just like a merry tiny band of high schoolers set out to rectify the injustice, to make a change to it. And I think there's also something really beautiful about when you defeat the bosses in that game, you don't, they don't die in their dream world. In case you haven't played it, it's kind of what it is. What happens instead is you give them a change of heart. And I think that really synthesizes what I'm saying with, I think, how this beautiful, hopeful, inducing approach to an otherwise really brutal world that stands for what all these JRPGs are so successful at. It's not about let's kill off the bad guy. It's not let's take out the Reapers and just end the threat, or whatever big bad it is at the end of a game. Instead, it's let's look at this as a human issue, as humans who are doing bad things, and let's change their ways. Let's utilize what we have access to, our powers, to try and address that at the root, which is the person who's behaving a certain way, not the symptoms it's creating. And I know I'm unpacking this to the nines. I just think it's really special, and I think that it's very sweet and hits that perfect balance. And I think imagining Yakuza Like a Dragon is a good one here. It hits that perfect balance between just being that entertainment you need, freaking like going and like meeting your lobster friend who decides to be in a relationship with a crab. There's that fun stuff, although that made me cry too. But then there's also just this beautiful, like, I can do it. I'm going to set out and fix this. How? Like, well, you got no power, no money. It's just like, but the attitude, that Ichiban Kasuga, the protagonist of Like a Dragon attitude of, I can still make a difference. I can still go do something. And I think that is just so impactful for how a lot of people, I would say most people, are doing in 2025. What most people are experiencing when everything's like kind of gone to shit, no matter how you look at things, or wherever you are in the scheme of the state of affairs. I think very generally at every point in history, really, during, the 2000s or all the other decades, it's the idea of hope, the idea of like not feeling so small in the world that you can't do anything. Like the idea of, it is the complete anti-nihilism, I think, is how I see it. It's just this really gorgeous optimism. And I think optimism now can feel childish. I think optimism for a lot of people, and I think this is probably a huge thing in 2025, seems silly. Like it seems unrealistic, and it's like, why would you? But that's why I think like playing these games and just seeing, of course it's written that way, and of course like it's not like we can go use magical powers and fix everything. But I think just generally the hopefulness, I think, is something that I found I was housing in playing some of these games. Just the concept of not being completely victim to the whims of people who are more powerful to you, and that it can be enough that you want to change or that you're doing the right thing. Like that can be enough. And I think like in metaphor, that works really well. It's, you're a member of this resistance, and actually you're nobody at the start. All you're doing is delivering a message. But even though you're all the way at the bottom of the system, you're at the bottom of the bottom tribe. Like no one gives a shit about the elder. You still have this, I can do it, come on. And the characters around you, again, I know it's a video game, but the characters around you feed off that. And I do think there's something there that translates to the world we live in. You meet all these characters who, just by virtue of living in this super oppressive, brutal, divided game world, have accepted that it's just that stuff is messed, if you prefer, that stuff is messed. They are just downtrodden. They're pessimistic about the future. They've just learned from the past and from the current state of things that you just keep losing. You just keep taking hits and copping it, and that's all there is to do. And a lot of them are so fatalistic. Some of them like are just ready to give up and just succumb to the state of things or to their own mistakes, or just believing that the inertia of where they've been means that there's never going to be anywhere positive to go. And it's funny, it's not like you're particularly charismatic. I mean, obviously you control yourself, but there is some built-in personality to your protagonist, and that is just being someone who, no matter how bad things get, just continues on. Like when you get knocked all the way back down to the world's most unpopular person by a plot point quite far into the game, you just sort of pull yourself up from the bootstraps and be like, well, let's keep going, because what else is there to do? It's just like give up and nihilism, and the people around you are like, why don't you just give up? It's too hard. How on earth are we going to do this? And just not even by giving a big impassioned speech, just by being there and continuing, you are doing something. Oh, I sound like such a motivational speaker, but I genuinely love it. The central ethos of metaphor, as I said, is that anxiety is a strength. It's not a weakness. And it's only by harnessing and radically accepting it that you can fuse it with hope and you turn that into power. And that's the kind of like beautiful and idealistic storytelling that these days you kind of only find in Disney movies, honestly. I think everywhere else has just been like, what? Yeah, let's just go full dystopia. Like you look at any cyberpunk genre game, anything that falls into that setting and theme. And it's probably the opposite of JRPGs. That isn't to say that JRPGs don't live in cyberpunk universes sometimes and have that setting. But take Cyberpunk 2077, which has the opposite tack. It is Night City will win every time. You pull some great things out of it at certain points, and you certainly help a lot of people. But by and large, Night City wins every time. You can storm Arasaka Tower, but it's still a place that's just ruled by corpos, and there's no baiting them. And I think that is cool too. I think that makes sense, and I think it's really interesting just trying to affect any change in that brutal ass world. And I absolutely love Cyberpunk too. But I think it does sit at the other end of the spectrum of two game world states that are very similarly dystopian, and coming at it in a sort of nihilistic, it's all messed up WRPG place, and then the really heartwarming, earnest place that JRPGs often come from, in my experience. Without spoiling anything, Metaphor had me crying to character deaths, secondhand pain from my comrades suffering their own losses, and ultimately, in the larger message and fantasy, that hope is enough. That to me made me teary, honestly. Just the theme that in any level of adversity, hope can be enough. Just any shred of it, and that hope can be contagious, and it can spread, and that's basically what a lot of Metaphor is about, is showing people that it's okay to embrace their anxieties, and only by embracing them can they move forward to somewhere productive. Because without embracing them and by rejecting them, that's how they completely fall victim to them, because they haven't accepted that it's just part of being. And then so that opens a door to being able to be open to the idea that they can affect change too. It's very power of friendship and the power of belief, and I think the power of friendship stuff really comes through in the bonds that you develop in these sorts of RPGs. And also, as I've said a few times, I think that it is rooted most importantly and most pervasively in the protagonist. It's rooted in your protagonist in Metaphor, who just never loses faith, no matter how things go. And again, you sort of choose your dialogue options, but you're still funneled down the path of, we can do it. You know what? I still think, we could have this. I reckon if we've got this, however unrealistic that sounds. And I think Ichiban Kasuga is also a great example. You have this character who just gets dumped on, like no money, he's homeless, he jumps out of prison, which he's been in for like all of these years. He has had the worst lot, but he's just like unconditionally, blindingly optimistic. And it's really gorgeous, and it's really nice. And maybe it comes off like too naive and too earnest and like, oh, well, that's really unrealistic. But I think even the possibility that it is something that can affect change, give you hope, like something that somebody can look at and feel less alone and disenchanted and nihilistic, I think that that's really special, and that's really nice. This is like a PSA episode, hey. I'm like, are you bummed? Go play Metaphor, but you got to keep going, because, yeah, you don't want to, just don't do the start. Anyway, this has been Just Saying, or it's been me pouring my heart out to you and saying how nice I think these JRPGs are. Let me know in the comments what you reckon, though. Is it sweet or naff? Am I using naff wrong? Let me know. If you've hit this part of the video, go send me a cat emoji. Have we done that one before? I don't think so. I do like seeing your emojis if you post them at the end. Anyway, that's everything I have to talk to you about. Yeah, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you again next week.